Hello everybody, Andy here, and today we are looking at the beginner teams that I think you should learn to play the game with. So, let's start with why am I doing this now? Because obviously, you know, hey, we've just had Christmas, a lot of people have just been given a brand new team, or have been given the new Kill Team 2024 rule set in its entirety to learn, and you want to know, is my team good? Well, I have good news for you. You can learn the game on any kill team. There you go. Don't worry. There is no kill team in the game that literally cannot beat any other kill team in the game. However, some teams are easier to win with than others, especially when you take into account the fact that you are a new player. This generally means that you want a more durable team because you're able to make mistakes and not get tabled for doing it. Okay? Now, the reason I'm doing this right now as well is because if you happen to be an Instagram person and you follow a particular person who I shall not name, they are openly one of the kill team devs. They recently did like a little Q&A over there. It was mainly fun, and they actually said these are my 4 teams that I think everyone are like the best beginner teams. So I thought, oh, well, okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you who they are, just in case they don't actually want it publicly put out there on YouTube, but they are open about the fact that they are a kill team dev very clearly. Cool. So with that said, let's intriguing me. There we go. And we can, this is just the thumbnail for the video, obviously, because it doesn't make sense really, because I'm not actually going to recommend either of these 2 teams, but behind this is the starter set, and these are starter teams. There you go. To put anybody's mind at ease, because hopefully a lot of people were just given the starter set, 2 brilliant kill teams to start the game with. There you go. Right, let's get into it straight away. Oh, sorry, also, I'm actually going to do something slightly different. I'm going to challenge myself to give super faction, as we would say in 40k, their best beginner kill team. So I'm going to do 1 team for Imperium, 1 team for Chaos, 1 team for Aeldari, and 1 team for Xenos. So because, you know, we all know how it is. Ultimately, most people they don't like, I want that rule set. Most people like, I like that faction. What faction can I play the team for? Cool, so with that said, let's get into it. Can I click on the next slide? Yes, I can. So this is straight from the official Games Workshop dev here. They recommend Plague Marines, Scout Squad, Harlequin Jaegers, and Commandos. Then I've added my little reasons as to why these are good. So the Plague Marines are a durable team, and that's it. So, look, any team can be a good team to learn the game with. However, I would say that the Plague Marines aren't actually that straightforward of a team to play, and they actually have quite a bit going on, and they have the poison mechanic, and they have like contagion, which is just, and it's like, there's actually quite a lot going on with Plague Marines. However, a very good way to play the game, and in fact the way everyone should play their first few games, is very rules light. So if you look at all of the Plague Marine rules, and you take into account all of their equipment, all of their ploys, you know, firefight ploys and strategic ploys, and all of their abilities on the datasheet and the raw datasheet numbers themselves, every team is a lot, I'm going to be honest with you. But if you're kind of layering into it, much like you will if you just picked up your starter set, and you just ignore equipment, you ignore ploys, you even ignore abilities, and you just roll those dice for your first game, Plague Marines are good. And then as you layer in the additional rules, then they kind of make sense. And so I don't want to focus too much on how complex a team is to play, because nobody playing their first game should be playing the full rule set. You should be layering in games, okay? So the advantage of Plague Marines is that they are durable. I think that if you're just, you know, going straight into a tournament day 1 and hoping you come out the other side and you're playing everything, Plague Marines probably have a little bit too much to them, but we'll talk about that again in a moment. However, the Scout Squad are nice and straightforward. They are, you know, a 1-box team. All you have to do is figure out what you want your warriors to be using, and that's it. And they will always run pretty much the same thing. And you can very easily, their main racial ability is of course called forward scouting, and if you want you can just say, I get a CP and I redeploy and I put down a mine, and that's it. and you can almost ignore that as a thing and just force your opponent to deal with mines you put down and ignore it for the rest of it. The Harkin Jaegers are, of course, a good team because they're short. No more need be said. No, again, a one-box team, and they're not overly complex, and a lot of them, again, much like the Scout Squad, will be warriors, and you get to put down mines, forcing your opponent to funnel a little bit, but there's no real decisions to be made there when you're building your list, and they're relatively solid, just as a team. There you go. And then we get the Commandos. I think the Commandos are probably one of the best teams to learn the game on because they are honest. They just play kill team. They don't have shenanigans, really. They occasionally get some re-rolls, but they just get to roll a bunch of dice. They're good at every range that the operative needs to shoot at, and yeah. I generally like Commandos. In fact, Commandos would have been on my Xenos pick if the GW dev here didn't already say Commandos. So yes, I fully support Commandos. The others are all debatable, but I think every beginner guide, beginner team list should have Commandos on it. We then go to any Marine team. So, as I alluded to, or outright said earlier, one of the things that beginner players are going to do is make a lot of mistakes. They're going to swap from conceal to engage far too early. They're going to be too aggressive. They're going to push up the board too fast. They're going to put themselves into... they're going to overreach. They're going to stretch out too hard. We all have to be stretched out, obviously, but maybe not that much. And Marines allow you to do that. Firstly, they have the capability to do that as you want them to do it, thanks to the APL3. But they also have the durability built into them that it doesn't mean an automatic loss of a model for you, which is incredibly strong for you as a beginner, which is why the Plague Marines work as a beginner team. Likewise, Angels of Death, as I said, the starter set has two brilliant learn to play the game teams. And again, any Marine team. Now, we could then look at perhaps Warp Coven and say, Andy, are you really saying that Warp Coven is a strong beginner team? Genuinely, yes. So Warp Coven have a lot of shenanigans to them, but when you're playing the game, much like I was saying for the Plague God there, are they Plague God? Death God, Plague Marines, yeah. You layer things in. No one should be playing a full Warp Coven, 8 model Warp Coven team, 7 model, whatever it is, Warp Coven team, without like fully enabled, everything turned on their first 10 games, okay? You should be easing yourselves into it. Game 1, you're just playing numbers on data sheets and your weapon rules. That's it. Ignore your abilities. Just what does my model do? How many times does it action per activation? How much health do I have? How does combat work? How does shooting work? What does this special rule do? That's it. Nothing else. Then game 2, you want to bring in the actual datasheet abilities that your models have. So, oh, okay, I've got this psychic power. Cool. As you're layering things in that way, any team is playable, even the shenanigan-filled Warp Coven. And then, of course, you'd layer in strategic ploys, and then firefight ploys, and then, that kind of thing. So, yes, any Marine team is good purely because of the nature of 14 wounds with a 3-up save. Cool. Right, let's get into the real picks now, because obviously any Marine team just had to be said, but yeah. Right, Imperium. So I think that Kassakin are one of the best teams, beginner teams, to learn this game on. They have one thing, and that is shooting. And my god, they are reliable with their shooting. I generally believe that if you're learning the game, you want to learn orders and cover systems, okay? That is really what Kill Team is about. Yes, melee is incredibly dangerous and very strong, as it should be. It's meant to be a very lethal game. However, the true system of Kill Team, in my opinion, is shooting, and so you do want to have a really solid grasp of that. And with the Kassakin, you have to learn how to shoot. If you take the Kassakin and they're your beginner team, whether you like them or not, well, you should obviously like the team you're playing, but it will give you a really, really solid foundation going forwards to any other team. Even if your team becomes a melee team, you'll know the ins and outs, the intricacies of any shooting team you might come against. Yeah, there you go. Cool. So yeah, Kasrkin, really good. And they're hitting on 3s. They've got brilliant, they've got like accurate 1, they've got severe, they've got, yeah. They're a very, very reliable shooting team. You don't need to worry about, should I run Inquisition with them? Forget that. Just run Kasrkin, learn how shooting works. Very good team to learn the game on. Which brings us to Chaos, and they are the opposite. So, hey, if what I just said doesn't tickle your pickle, but for some reason you don't want to go and play Warcry where you can just do all melee and that's the game. Felgor Ravagers. That's what you play. They are all melee. Technically they have pistols. Never fire your pistol. I don't care. Don't waste your shenanigans with that. Don't fire a pistol. Technically they have shenanigans with a Psyker and like a toxic... Nah. Just run forwards and hit stuff. This is a team that is inherently strong, much like Marines are strong because they are durable. The Felgor Ravagers are strong because they just don't die, because they have to be killed twice to be more accurate with that statement. So you have an ability called Frenzy. When you die, instead of being removed from the board, you get a Frenzy token and you get 1 more activation before you are actually removed from the board. This is incredibly strong, and there are actually there's a full 10, or I think it's 7 different specialists in this team, but it really doesn't matter. What you're doing is you're running forwards and you're rolling dice to hit, and you probably have Ceaseless or Balance, and that's it. That's the team, and then you die, but you don't get removed from the table. Incredibly strong team. You do not have to think about how does shooting work. You just run forwards, and then you do not die natively. Cool. So if you want to learn melee, play these guys, because they're going to hit melee a lot. Which brings us to the Aeldari. Now, every video, has to have a controversial pick. And this is my one. So, Aeldari. I don't think that any of their teams are really brilliant to learn the game on. I recently ran into someone at my workplace who recognized me and said, "Oh, I'm new to Kill Team and I'm running Corsairs." And my instant reaction was, "Really? Right?" Because Corsairs are a fragile team and every model does a different thing. And if you forget to do that individual model's thing, you're not playing very well and there's a lot going on. Okay, it's really information overload, and it's quite hard to layer in the rules when it comes to that, much like I talked about with Warp Coven. Warp Coven have lots of shenanigans, yes, but actually they don't have that many data sheets to remember. So if you're playing it nice and simple, well, a sorcerer is a sorcerer, a rubric's a rubric, a zangle's a zangle, it's nice and easy. Corsairs, not so much. Corsairs have a lot going on. Now, you might be thinking, but Andy, Blades of Cain have the most ploys in the game. They have 23 ploys instead of 8. Is that really? Well, allow me to give you the counterpoint. Firstly, what are the Blades of Cain? So, they're mixed arms, first of all. The main thing they do is they have rerolls everywhere. Okay, you always have a way to get a reroll, whether it's in ranged, shooting, those are the same thing. Whether it's in range, melee, or defense, you get rerolls across the board, super easy. And then you have layered rules, and layered rules is what I really want to talk about here. Let's quickly talk about their box first, though. So, as you see here, the Blades of Cain are 10 Scorpions. That's what you get if you buy the Blades of Cain Kill Team box. However, it's actually an 8 model team, and it can be any combination of Striking Scorpions, which are the Kill Team box, but then also Dire Avengers and Howling Banshees. However, that's kind of a thing that you can layer in. That's what I'm talking about, layered rules, okay? But if you want the most simple team, Striking Scorpions. This is the way to go. You get a reroll anytime something happens, and all you do is you run up. You've got that 3 APL, so you can, much like Marines, you can do what you want to do, and you're just really quite effective at doing it. It's going to teach you the value of only having 8 wounds. So whereas the Marines get to be durable, no Aeldari is durable. Okay, and that's something that's going to be very valuable to learn. A team like Aeldari, the Blades of Cain, are going to teach you how to engage and when to engage in a combat. Because if you engage at the wrong time, you will get killed in 2 hits by almost everything in the game. Whereas the Marines are more like 4 hits by anything in the game, which is so different. However, the Scorpions are actually, I reckon, if you're going to go mono aspect, as we call it, aka only using either the Striking Scorpions, the Howling Banshees, or the Dire Avengers, I actually think that the Striking Scorpions are the way to go. When you perform an attack action, you immediately deal 2 damage. That's pretty fun. It means that effectively your weapon is 7 damage on its first hit. That's really good. If you get a crit, which you should, you're killing a regular human. This is pretty strong. Your guns all have rending, and you have a reroll. Basically, the way you should learn this team is the first time you play them, forget all of their aspect techniques. There's too many. Ignore them. You're all Scorpions, so you have 1 data sheet. What other kill team gets 1 data sheet to have to remember? This is really strong because it means you don't have to think, okay, I want my sniper on this side of the board and I'm hoping that the enemy's going to do this, and then I've got my heavy gunner on this side, and then I've got my combat on the left as well, and I'm assuming that the enemy's... No. You have 1 data sheet. They're all the same. They can all become the shenanigan guy that you want to be the shenanigan guy. This is actually really, really good for beginners. With a lot of other teams, if you have the wrong operative on the wrong side of the board, away from where he needs to be, whether it's the objective he needs to cap, the mission action he needs to perform, the melee he wants to be in, whatever, then you're kind of screwed. And it's like, whoops. And you have to waste an entire turn repositioning. That simply doesn't happen with the Blades of Cain. With the Blades of Cain, every model, every operative is the same. And it's the aspect techniques that you will then layer in and learn later that will eventually kind of make it the specialist. Additionally, one of the things, just to help you kind of get your head around aspect techniques, the way to think of this is that actually every aspect only has 1 or 2. Yes, technically they have, I think it's 4, 5, 6, 5, I think, 6, I don't know. But actually, all of them have like 1 thing that you're going to use as often as you can. And then in another circumstance, probably a combat, they have another thing. And everything else is very out there, and you'll only use it once every few games. It's not a regular thing. So forget it. Really, Scorpions have like 2 aspect techniques. There you go, that's it. And the fact that you don't have, that the only thing you're getting for your actual real ploys are rerolls, don't even think about them. There you go. So this is actually, despite how it might seem on the surface, I believe the best Aeldari team to begin learning the game with. Cool, that's my evangelization done. I do think that the other option would have been actually Void Dancers. I still think they're better than Corsairs. I would not have picked Corsairs or Hand of the Archon, but Void Dancers were an option as well, except they don't actually have a kill team box. So I thought, no, let's not pick them. But obviously, being able to pseudo fly is also, and just be wherever you want and roll 5 dice is pretty strong too. But they are a little bit more complicated, in my opinion, than a nice simple Blades of Cain. Which brings us to the rest of the Xenos. So many options. Who will I pick? What will I pick? It will be Wrecker, the Wrecker crew. So these are, of course, the new guys on the block, thanks to Brutal and Cunning. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who else can you pick, honestly? assuming that Commandos is already gone. These are your elite orcs. So they've got 12 wounds, which is great. I think they're saving on 4s. That sounds about right. And you're just doing big damage. All of your guys hit real big. You are rewarded and encouraged to roll 6s. There you go. That's what they do. All of their ranged attacks roll 6 dice. Isn't that awesome? And their melee guys are hitting big damage. They're like 4, 5, 6s always. With brutal and yeah, really, really strong just across the board. And because of their wrecker points, even if you fluff a roll, you can probably not fluff the roll. There you go. Really strong team. Any team that allows you to roll lots of dice to get a benefit for another attack is really good, because we call that dice manipulation. Being able to retain dice or guarantee yourself a certain number of hits is really strong. And that's really all they do. If you do pick this team up, obviously I've just done like a proper how to play guide for them, and that includes a build guide. I would say the way you want to build them, just so we're clear, is you only want one range guy, which is your Rocketeer guy, and then everybody else should be a melee dude. There you go. I think that's the best way to run these guys. You don't want the gunners. I don't think they're really adding any of a benefit to you. And then the actual play for them is just run your squigs up, blow them up, because they're 6 damage each. You don't even care if you deal damage. You're just trying to get those 6s to grow your wrecker points. There you go. Whew. Right, and that's it. Let's go back to the thumbnail. I don't know why I've gone back to the thumbnail, actually. But that's a nice thumbnail, isn't it? Lovely. Boom. Okay, everybody. Well, that was a beginner team for every super faction, as we would call it. And then also a Kill Team developers official stance. Sorry, unofficial stance on their ideas for beginner kill teams. I'm just going to say it again. You can view reasons to play almost any team. Almost every team in the game can take you from 0 to hero. There are very few teams where I would genuinely say, look, this is a good beginner team, but not a good advanced team. That just really doesn't exist in Kill Team. If you can grasp any team, then you can grasp any other team. But, you know, the game system itself has a barrier to entry, as all war games do. And if you can get over that, any team is open to you. And just to kind of hammer down, if you are new to the game, you made it through, thank you very much. But also, don't be turned off if you're finding a war game in general, but Kill Team obviously, hard to learn, and you feel like you're always missing rules. That's just how wargaming is in general. And Kill Team is not a simple game. You know, it's a skirmish game, but it's not easy. Like, there's a lot of rules interactions. In the last edition, it was easier because we had Compendium, and the Compendium teams were easy. And you could have a proper game where genuinely nobody would make a rules mistake. I think that era is gone in Kill Team, and you just have to roll with the punches, and hopefully you're enjoying the fact that you can play solo or co-op and just enjoy the game the way it should be enjoyed. And if you want to take things further and check out tournaments or competitive play in general, approved ops as we call it, then be aware that, you know, there's a lot of rules. There's so many interactions in Kill Team these days, and even one of the most simple teams, the Angels of Death, it's no longer as simple as it was. It's no longer just you get a reroll at different distances. Even they have become more complex. So don't worry about it. You know, we're all learning the game permanently. Even if you go and watch the latest World's Championships, even at the top table, mistakes were made. That's just how it goes. Don't worry about it. As long as you're having fun, that's what really matters. And don't put too much pressure on yourself if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. There are ways to get around it. Cool. Alright, well, thank you for watching, everybody. This has been Andy from Glass Half Dead. So, you're cool, I'm cool, stay hydrated.